Hey guys, Richard Drew, pro enduro rider based out of Dallas, Texas, and today I want to give you my review or overview of the 2017 Giant Trance Advanced. Now, before you say, wait a minute, what kind of enduro rider comes out of Texas? We actually have some really cool trails here, and I'm lucky enough that I get to ride all over this part of the country and not only ride cool trails with some awesome people, but get to do some really cool races. Some of those races are in the Southern Enduro Tour, and I was fortunate enough to win that tour last year, so I'm really pumped to be defending that championship on the 2017 Trance Advanced. So I'm going to use that experience to give you my take on the bike, where it's good, maybe where I've had a few issues with it, but definitely a real world take on the bike. So let's start with what the bike is. Giant bills it as a progressive trail bike, and this is a pretty cool term because I think it fits this bike. The trail segment is huge right now. It's just blowing up. You're having tons of different bikes that fit into this category. So progressive trail, and it's kind of funny because this bike, although positioned right below the rein, being that it has 150 millimeters travel up front, 140 in the rear, you have the rein at 160, 160, you'd think, okay, they're pretty close. Well, yeah, on paper they are, but then you look at the head angle, and that's where you start to see the difference. So yes, the 17 Trance is longer and lower, but it's not necessarily slacker, and there's a reason for that. Giant likes the way this bike has a lot of cross-country lineage, and the idea is to keep that lineage in the bike. So versatility is a word that comes up over and over and over again. This bike is just that. The capability can't be denied, and proof of that is the fact that Josh Carlson, factory Giant enduro rider, is going to be racing this bike in the Enduro World Series. The biggest change he's made is 160 millimeter RockShox Lyric up front. Well, then you look at its cross-country capability, and I hasten to use that term because people hear that and they think, oh, wait a minute, I need something that can handle the gnar. But on the other end of the spectrum, around here is a perfect example. You have people that are scared of this bike because it's too big. I've done 30 to 40 mile cross-country rides on this bike. I did one last week, 32 miles, Kansas City, and I rode between trails about 7 miles on flat road, and the thing was incredible. So how do they manage that? Again, 150 millimeters of travel up front. It's a RockShox Pike RCT3. Solo air. I have the 3 platforms to choose from. Very supple fork, something I'm really happy with. In the rear, as far as suspension goes, you have the RockShox Super Deluxe. The Super Deluxe, again, 3 positions to choose from, external reservoir. It's the trunnion mount. So this is where we see a big change from 16 to 17. The trunnion mount allowed engineers to lower the shock positioning. That'll bring the center of gravity down. It'll also lower the leverage ratio on the rear. So somebody like me, a little heavier, hard charger, I can run a little bit less pressure. I get better pedaling efficiency and better braking efficiency. So there's your suspension setup. Of course, it's a 27.5 platform, something that Giant has spent a lot of time and effort into engineering. So the nimbleness is absolutely incredible of this bike, but they found a way, I think, with lengthening the wheelbase a little bit to get the rollover that much better. For me, it was a direct comparison of Phoenix Training Camp 16 to 17. I was able to clear a lot more technical climbing sections on this bike than I was on the last bike. Now, let's get to the elephant in the room that I've been asked about over and over again, pedal strikes. Now, I will tell you there are more pedal strikes with this bike. That's undeniable. But I think the advantage of the lower center of gravity outweighs the pedal strikes you're going to get. Now, as a rider, I quickly realized those pedal strikes were going to be there. So what I tried to do was just maybe be a little bit more cognizant of them. And I think that's something that you can do pretty easily as a rider. All right, so let's talk about my bike and the way it's set up. It started its life as an Advanced 1, but a plane flight accident to Phoenix caused us to have to replace the frame. So that's how she got her name Matador. The replacement frame, matte black with some really cool green features. When it was built up, I decided to make the change over to the RockShox Pike and Super Deluxe. That's why I referenced those earlier. My other race bike is the Anthem Advanced SX. So what I needed was continuity between the two. This bike, as it was set up factory, the Fox platform was great, but there were just too many differences between the Fox stuff and the RockShox equipment. So I decided to make the change to go RockShox on both. One of the other changes I made was I immediately took off the carbon stock wheels and went with some Industry 9 Enduro 305s. So I have zero time, literally, on the factory carbon wheels. So I really can't speak to how good or not they are. But I can tell you the Enduro 305s are absolutely legit. 30.5 internal width, so tire choice for me, I decided to go a little bit bigger. This year we're running right now 2.5 Maxxis Minion DHF on the back and a 2.6 Specialized Butcher grid up front. I initially was going to do 2.6s front and rear because if you get on the chat rooms, they'll tell you, hey, 2.6s will fit. Well, I'm here to tell you, 2.6 ain't going to fit in the rear, especially something that chunky. I settled on the 2.5, and I say settled. It's an awesome tire. Maxxis Minion DHF, I ran a 2.3 all race season last year. It was absolutely incredible. So I'm going to play around with this setup a little bit and see what happens. Now, what pedals am I striking? They are the HT Components T1. I've been a tried and true SPD Shimano guy for the longest time, and they're great pedals, but did a little more research and wanted something that had a little bit tighter engagement. And I found that with these T1 pedals. Clipped into the T1 with the Giant Flow shoe, it's almost a match made in heaven, so I've been really happy with that. As far as cockpit goes, I get really weird about my cockpit, so I took the stock setup off and I went with a Renthal Fat Bar 760 millimeter wide and then a 40 millimeter Renthal Apex stem. So I run a large. I am not the tallest guy, I'm only 5'10", so running a large bike, it can feel a little bit long with that longer factory stem. So dropping down to the 40 shortens the thing up a little bit, makes it feel absolutely perfect for me. Other than that, some uniqueness, I guess, with my bike. Up on the handlebars, I have a couple tire plugs that I zip tie loosely. That's something I got from Rob Drew. I think that's just one of those things that help mid-race run. You can pull one of those guys off and plug a hole. Stock Giant Contact SL dropper post, 150 millimeters. If you go with a large, you get a 150 millimeter post. If you go with a medium, it's only going to be 125 millimeter dropper. Still running XT 1x11, been very happy with that. Also XT brakes. So if you kind of step back and look at what build are you after, the 0, the 1, the 2, I think they're all incredible values. So I've had people ask about each of them, and I think they're all great. It's just a matter of what is your budget and maybe what are your preferences in regard to drivetrain. Are you a SRAM or Shimano guy? And suspension, are you a Fox or a RockShox guy? I'm a couple races in, been riding the bike for almost 5 months now, and I'm incredibly happy. Compared directly to my 2016, I just think it's better in every facet. It's a lot more balanced. The rear suspension definitely works a little bit better. With the 16 bike, I was running incredibly high shock pressure, so now I'm able to go a little bit lower. My bike currently set up at 210 pounds, and that gives me 25% sag. Now, it's a little on the higher end of things as far as air pressure, but running the sag there and keeping the ride height up a little bit higher, I think might help with a little bit of the pedal strikes. And again, doing that, I run the platform on the rear wide open, and it seems to work well for me. Up front, I'm at 80 pounds with 3 bottomless tokens, and that helps the thing ramp up pretty good, keeps it supple down low. Now, I'll tell you right away, I'm not a suspension expert by any means, so I'm still playing with these numbers to try and get it set up to where I think it's perfect for me. But again, that's something that you're going to have to deal with. The races have varied in terrain. Some have been really chunky, rocky, and some have been a little bit more wide open with some gnarlier stuff to start, and then it opens up into just basically aggressive cross-country riding. I think the bike's excelled pretty much everywhere. My results have been really good, and I feel a lot more confident on the bike, and that's one thing I noticed immediately when I got on it. It's definitely a confidence-inspiring bike, and it's something that if you have to be in the saddle all day, riding big miles and climbing a lot, I think it does a good job of it. Phoenix Training Camp is one of my big test platforms, and comparing the 2016 to the 2017, I was able to clear a lot of the technical climbs on my first attempt on the 17 versus the 16. So that's something that I think speaks volumes to the capability of the bike and what they've done for 2017. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I hope this information helped getting the perspective of a pro enduro rider. I know it's hard making a decision buying a bike, but hopefully my feedback gave you a little bit more confidence in the capability of the Giant Trance Advanced. If you want to check out any more of my adventures on two wheels, you can check out my Instagram @TheRichDrew and my athlete Facebook page, Rich Drew, and have fun out there. Go out and shred some gnar and have a smile on your face.